Have you dreamed of bigger things for your life? Then you are in the right place. Each week, you will be given tips on how to change your inner dialogue, conquer your goals, and ways to step into a higher version of yourself. I'm your host, Lauren Kubat. I'm a motivational speaker who hosts personal development events. I'm a sought-after fitness instructor, a wife, and a mom of 2 young boys. I'm obsessed with all things personal development, and I believe anyone can achieve the life they want. Let the Become Your Vision podcast be the inspiration you need to step into greater things. Now let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. So you saw the title. Today we're talking about all things related to plastic surgery. We're talking about Botox. We're talking about fillers. We're talking about Brazilian butt lifts. We're talking about breast augmentation and tummy tucks. Now, who I interviewed today is Dr. Dennis Schimpf. I have not worked with him personally, but we have a mutual friend who connected us together and answered all of my questions and some of the questions that you submitted to me on Instagram. So we will talk all about that shortly. Now, I do want to note there is a sound in the background, and you may hear this, so I want to tell you what that is. So Dr. Shimpf is wearing bracelets while we were doing the interview, and sometimes he would touch his desk with the bracelet, so it made a little sound, and then, he would move things on his desk or whatever. So you might hear that in the background if you're like, what is that? That's what that is. And then I'm going to share my story with plastic surgery with you. Again, I have not worked with Dr. Shimpf. My plastic surgery, I got breast augmentation 2 years ago, and I'm going to share my story with you. So I always struggled with having poor self-esteem when it came to my breasts. When I was younger, all of my friends were developing and I never developed. I was wearing, really tiny bras until, this is a very embarrassing story. It was 6th grade. It was the first day of school. I was wearing this white top. I still remember what I was wearing. And I was wearing these white capris with big cherries on them. And I had gotten a new bra, a bra that was way too big for me. The cup size was, huge. Okay. And I barely had anything. I was like 2 little raisins, right? So I wore this bra, and a couple days later, I switched up my bra and actually wore a bra that actually fit. And I remember one of the boys saying that him and his friends knew that I stuffed because my boobs were big one day and then now they're not big anymore. And I was mortified. And I was like, well, I don't stuff. But I was wearing a bra that was way too big for me. So I always was self-conscious over my breasts. And then a family member had her boobs done, and I was like, I want to do this. This was when I was 21, graduated college. I was like, I am so ready to get these bad boys done. And I had not a good experience. I actually went to the doctor that she went to. He had great reviews. She went to him, and then I had a totally different experience. The front desk lady was very, very pushy. Tom actually came with me, and at the time he was like so anti-plastic surgery. He was like, you don't need it. You're beautiful the way you are. But that's something I always wanted. I wanted to do it for me. And then we have this bad experience. Like, this woman is pushy. She wanted me to basically sign the papers. Then she wasn't communicating with myself and Tom. She was just looking at me. And same with the doctor. The doctor came in. He was nice. And, he wasn't pushy like the secretary was. But who you have work for you is a direct reflection on you. And she was a direct reflection on the surgeon. So long story short, I was like, no, okay, this is not the time. So I didn't get them done. I actually put it out of my head for a really long time. Like, I don't need them. It's not in my cards. Really bad experience. Then I had our 2 boys. And after our second son, I was like, oh, my boobs are even smaller than they were before. And it was something that continued to bother me. And I was like, I really want this done. And over the years, Tom was like a little bit more open to it because more of our friends had their boobs done after kids, and he knew what I put my body through, and so his mindset changed. He didn't say like I needed them or anything like that, but he was like, whatever you want to do, and it's going to make you feel comfortable and confident, then do so. And my main goal was to fill out a sports bra and fill out my bikini top. I didn't want to be super huge. I love to work out. I wanted kind of an athletic look. And I didn't want them to interfere with my workouts. So I had set up 2 consultations. And one was another recommendation. A friend went to this doctor. If you're wondering who I went to in the Charleston area, direct message me, but I don't want to use any names. I don't want to encourage anybody that you need plastic surgery, because if you're all natural, be all natural. Be confident in your body. I was not, and I am so do whatever is going to make you feel good. If you think a little tweaking here and there is going to make you feel better about yourself, then do so. But if you're like, you love everything about yourself and you are totally into representing or, loving everything about yourself, all of your imperfections, then you do you. I'm not saying that you need plastic surgery at all. I'm not saying that you need to change anything at all. I'm just saying if there's something that is bothering you and you think this would help your confidence, then, I'm all for that. So anyway, my friend recommended this doctor. I had appointments set with him, and then I also did my research online. I Googled all the questions that you're supposed to ask when meeting with a doctor. I went into these meetings way more prepared than I did the first time. I don't even know what questions I asked the first time. I was just so ready to get it done. I was like rushing into it. I didn't really do my research. I didn't know what questions to ask. I'm so happy it didn't work out the way it did because I was just not prepared. This time around, 9 years later, I was much more comfortable in what I wanted and what to ask. And I even Googled answers, questions that I didn't think about prior. So set up this appointment with this recommended doctor. And then we were there. Office was clean. Everybody was super nice. Just an airy feel to it. Music in the background, just very inviting. The only issue I had with this place was the doctor's 45 minutes late, and he apologized, so I got past that. I know things happen. He was great. He answered all of our questions. Tom came with me. He looked at me. He looked at my husband. He was communicating with both of us. He is a family man. He wasn't pushy or anything like that. Loved him. We went to the second doctor. This doctor had really great reviews online. I was like, okay. So everybody loved, their experience with him. I went in. The office was very drab, very dated, which is fine. I can get past that, but it was like dusty. And then we went into the office to have the consultation with the doctor, and then they had to put chairs in there because there wasn't enough chairs. So that was a little awkward. And then the doctor comes in and he looks almost like dirty. He had a shabby look to the 5 o'clock shadow, but not like the scruffy like you're going for that look, just like sloppy. And then his uniform was sloppy and wrinkled. And then this is the kicker, you guys. He was burping through our whole consultation, burping. Tom and I got in the car afterwards. We look at each other. We're like, what the hell just happened? And so that was weird. And then I also didn't like this. I fully prepared in paying a certain amount going into surgery. It's an investment and it's your body. This is a major surgery. You're put under, there's recovery time. So it is a little bit intimidating, but I knew what I was paying for, right? And then he was kind of like a used car salesman. He was like, well, we can lower the price if you want. I'm not about that when it comes to this type of thing. Maybe if it's a car, that's a little bit different. Or, I don't know, work done to, I don't know, something else. But not when it comes to your body in a major surgery. And so that was like, I was like, no. So we decided to go with the first doctor. Now, all of these doctors, I want to say, as I've listened to other podcasts myself and just have done different research, all of these doctors, the first doctor when I was 21, these two doctors that I went and saw, they all had stellar reviews online. But I went with my intuition. So I think when it comes to this too, a guy can have a 5-star rating, but if you feel like something is off-putting and your gut is telling you have warning signs, red flags, then don't follow through, because the first two doctors had amazing reviews. The first doctor I had a recommendation for, but something didn't sit well. So when you're thinking about this too, don't rush into it. And the conversation I have with Dr. Dennis Schimpf today may answer some of the questions that you've always had about plastic surgery. I learned a ton of information that I didn't do before. But the main thing I want you to get out of this is always follow your gut intuition and do your research. So enjoy the conversation, guys. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. This one is going to be a juicy one for you. You saw the title. Today I have Dennis Shimpf. Dr. Dennis Shimpf is a cosmetic plastic surgeon who helps people discover their own definition of beauty every day. He is board certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery. After completing his fellowship at the Medical University of South Carolina, MUSC, in 2008, Dr. Shimpf stayed on as a full-time faculty member, words are hard, for the next 5 years, focusing on the practice of reconstructive surgery. While at MUSC, he founded the Advanced Breast Reconstruction Program at the National Cancer Institute, designated Hollings Cancer Center. He then transitioned to private practice and founded Sweetgrass Plastic Surgery, where he and his team now perform over 2,000 face and body enhancement procedures every year. Dr. Shimpf earned his MBA from the University of South Carolina and is the founder, CEO, and managing partner of Loopit, a platform that gathers physicians' reviews from real patients. He's also a sought-after speaker and the author of Finding Beauty, Become a Better You Through Plastic Surgery. He and his wife, Lori, have 7 children and live on Daniel Island in Charleston, South Carolina. Welcome to the show.
Great to see you, Lori.
Yeah, that was a mouthful. You've done a lot.
It's been busy.
Okay. Well, one of the things that stood out the most is 7 children. Like, how does that even happen?
It's a great question. I always joke. I just tell people I finally found something I could do right. So we've been fortunate. They're all healthy and extremely active and have really done well. In some ways, I think having a lot of them at times is easier. They sort of entertain, and the oldest 2 are girls, so they're kind of like mother figures. They kind of run the show sometimes. So
how old are they?
The oldest is just turned 19 this past week, and the youngest is going to be 10 in December.
Oh my gosh. So how many girls and how many boys?
4 girls, 3 boys.
Okay. Which ones are easier?
It depends on the day. The first 2 girls were pretty focused on golf, and they're both playing in college. So that kind of kept them out of trouble for the most part. My 15-year-old son is a handful for sure.
Yeah. Oh,
the girl, little bit more testing, and later on the boys get a little crazy. I mean, boys just do dumb things. There's no way around it. So
yeah. Oh my gosh. I heard different. So we have two young boys, 4 and 2, and I heard like girls are easier when they're younger, but harder when they're older. But I guess it depends on the kid, right?
For sure. And they're, I think today all parents face, the social media issues and telephone issues and all these things that just make it so much harder for kids.
Mm-hmm. Now, is it hard for your kids when they're exposed to, like, are they on TikTok and Instagram and all that?
Yeah, it's funny. Some of them are into that a lot, and we try to monitor that and as much as we can. And a couple of my kids, my oldest daughter, could really just take it or leave it. She couldn't care less, and some of the the younger boys aren't too into it. But
yeah,
just depends on, I guess, the age, and it's a hard thing to try to really, with raising kids today. It's a hard thing. These apps and different platforms that are just basically designed to hide things from parents and adults. So I mean, it's always.
And then having 7 to try to manage is hard in itself, I would imagine.
Yeah, at times for sure. But there is that kind of oversight from each other a little bit. I think they do, they may not like to admit it, but I think they do look out for each other and do try to help each other out. But it's just a different world. The days of everybody sitting around eating dinner together on a Sunday don't really happen a lot anymore. So
yeah, I would imagine that. Yeah, that's hard. So your 2 oldest, they're doing quite well with golf, correct?
yeah, I was just at the U.S. Women's Amateur with my younger of the 2 last week in New York. They both played in that a few times, and the older one is a redshirt freshman coming up this year. So she was there last year for part of the year with COVID. She's playing at the University of South Carolina.
Okay.
And her one is starting her freshman year next week, I think, end of next week at College of Charleston.
Oh my gosh. So did you used to play golf, or where did they pick up on that and their talent?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never really been much into it. Their mother was not really into it. It's just it's weird. Those 2 play golf, and then the next 2 were extremely good gymnasts. One of the older of the 2 lived in Texas for a few years, actually.
Wow.
I was training Simone Biles and was on her team in the training stuff. And, neither of us had anything to do with golf or gymnastics, so I can't really explain it.
Wow. So do you feel like they just have natural born talent and just like a hard work ethic?
I think they're pretty talented at the sports they're in. I think, again, having, kind of older siblings doing well, I think kind of helps motivate you maybe a little bit as the younger ones kind of come along. And they go and work out together, and they hang out together and do stuff together sports wise. So I think that's another kind of common bond with them that I'm thankful for, and happy. Sitting on the couch anymore than we have to. So
yeah. And then 7 in different sports and things like the scheduling and all of that. Like they should have I'm sure they do, like an Uber just for like kids and all their sports.
We would definitely be using it. Yeah, and in some ways, having a lot of kids, they weren't, we kind of said early on, like, I don't care what sport you play, but you're not going to be able to play 4 different sports a year. It's impossible to have all of you doing that. So, whatever you enjoy or whatever you're good at, focus on that, and we'll do everything we can to support you. But, and I think that's been helpful in some ways. They've been pretty focused on it.
Right. Like this is your one sport. You better, take advantage of everything it has to offer.
Yeah.
So are you from South Carolina?
I came here in 2005, end of 2005, early 2006, I guess it was. And yeah, I mean, I've loved it. I interviewed at different places to do plastic surgery, and this was the one that I really liked the most at the time. And Charleston was a lot different back then. It was a little quieter and smaller, and it's changed a lot for sure. But still love being here. And it is like living in a place that you're on vacation when you're off. Work gets in the sometimes, but that's all right.
I can imagine. So where are you from?
I was born in upstate New York, outside of Buffalo, and lived there for a while, then moved to Nevada, lived out there, lived in Miami, a few different places with my family and stuff. So traveled around a bit, and really happy to be here.
Yeah. I've picked up on your accent a little bit. A lot of people think I'm from New York, but I heard a little accent with you. Yep.
Yeah. People outside of New York and, who aren't familiar don't realize that upstate New York's, where I was 7 or 8 hour drive from New York City.
Right. Buffalo. I mean, like, isn't it farm country basically?
A lot of it is. Yeah. It's a lot of country and no big city really.
Yeah. You think New York, you think city, but that's not necessarily the case. So when did you decide that you wanted to become a surgeon?
I knew all along that I think, that I wanted to do surgery of some sort once I decided I was going to do this. And I started out and did 5 years of general surgery and completed that training. And that kind of exposes you to all the different forms of surgery. You do certain rotations and I kind of went through, I originally thought about doing cardiothoracic or heart surgery. And for a while I was going to change into neurosurgery. And this plastic surgery was the one field that kind of encompassed the whole body. You still operate on the whole body in all ages. You operate on kids with cleft lip and palates to adults with cancer and all the cosmetic. Then I did a lot of microsurgery, throughout my career. So it was ended up being a really cool profession in that you can really operate on the whole body and any number of different procedures, which I liked. A lot of medicine is becoming more and more highly specialized, and is becoming very narrowed in what a lot of the specialists do.
Mm. So did you have kids when you were operating on children?
Yes. I had my first child when I was a second year general surgery resident. So, yep. And then when I first finished up training at MUSC and was on staff, I went to their cleft lip and palate clinic and did that for the first couple of years. So did a lot of those surgeries on kids.
Yeah. What was that like, having your own kids and then operating on other children?
That it was good in some ways because you could appreciate how much it was, how much it helped, from a perspective and wanting, seeing children obviously, be unhappy or suffering is terrible. I think the hardest part of having kids was when I did a lot of trauma surgery training, and I think you start seeing the teenagers and the things that would happen in car accidents and just like I said, boys doing stupid things, and that's the thing that probably worried me more than I appreciate until I actually had a child.
Yeah. And then not only are you dealing with the patient, the child, but like the parents and the worry on their faces, I think that would bring a whole nother element to what you're doing. Like just so
Yeah,
more emotional. It's different than an adult. It just is.
it's a lot different. Yeah. And it is something that I don't think I think you can appreciate it, but you definitely appreciate it in a different manner when you are an actual parent. And
Mhm.
I think that just goes without saying that, the parents' biggest fear is obviously, things happening to their children.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you decided to get out of that. You decided to open your own practice. Like, what was the kind of the inspiration behind that? And was that a scary leap?
Well, I'd always wanted to go into private practice. I think,
Okay.
school and finish that degree around that same time. And I think some folks just function better in that kind of academic environment, and it's just there's not a lot of autonomy, there's not a lot of independence, and I think in terms of plastic surgery, especially, it's hard to do like what I do now in an academic center. Folks who come in and have higher end, cosmetic surgery don't want to deal with the challenges of going through an academic center and the hospitals. And so our offices are built more like almost like a spa than they are a medical center, medical office. And we have to really emphasize customer service and trying to keep people happy, because it's a service they're paying cash for,
Mhm.
and at a certain level of service and quality.
Yeah.
And we kind of started to want to do. And I think it's very scary. I think about it at times, even now when we're opening, five offices that we have and stuff. Because you just never know. There's so many things with the economy and changes that you can't really know what's going to happen. I think Charleston's a great place and insulates a little bit from that with the demand to be here, and the number of people moving here is just great for.
Mhm.
Not great for traffic, but certainly great for business. And I think you try to plan it out the best you can. You have some idea of what you're trying to achieve, but there's so many things you can't control. You kind of have to just go for it and go with it in some ways.
Right. A lot of variables. So you said you have 5 locations now?
We just actually combined our Daniel Island. We had 2 locations on Daniel Island. We just combined those. So we're down to 4. We have Kiowa, Somerville. We're opening next in really this week. And then we have 1 big office here on Daniel Island and West Ashley. So,
Oh my gosh. So that's a lot to manage, because how many surgeons do you have working under you?
right now we have a total of 3 surgeons and about 7 maybe or 8 mid-level nurse practitioner PAs. We have a total of somewhere in the neighborhood of 60-ish employees, 65.
Wow. A lot of moving parts, like you said, like you try your best to, facilitate everything and manage everything, but ultimately you can't predict every situation that's going to happen.
No, it's impossible. And I think, in these circumstances, one of the most important things, or the most important, is hiring, good people that you can count on, and that, aren't necessarily going to get it right 100% of the time, but they're going to do their best. And that's been a hard thing in the last year or two with everything going on. Hiring people has become extremely challenging, finding folks that fit in and that want to work. But in a business like ours, people are really our biggest, asset and commodity by far.
Mhm. Yeah. The woman that I spoke to today, I think she's your assistant, Megan. I just had a great experience with her, super friendly, super willing to help. And I think that customer service is huge, especially if somebody is choosing elective surgery. You want people to be kind and friendly, because it's a nerve-wracking thing.
Sure. Yeah, we really do try to be, as good as we can and supportive as we can. And dealing with the public in general is hard. I mean,
Yeah.
most part, most people are very reasonable and very understanding and, appreciative, but, not everyone. And those are the people that, it's the few people that make the days the most difficult. But
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine. Kind of backtracking here. I should have asked this one in the beginning, but John from Oblique Magazine was the one that kind of facilitated us having a discussion tonight. How do you know him? He's also from New York. Do you guys feel like you have a commonality there?
no, he's from New York, New York.
Okay. He's very New York.
He's sort of the poster child for New York.
For sure.
We met years back when I started my charity. He came by to just, I think, more interested in advertising stuff. He runs that magazine, and this was probably 2013 or so, 2014. And we started talking, and, I told him a little bit about the charity, and he kind of was a little turned off from charities. He said, because in the past he'd seen, people throwing these big, lavish balls and things and events and spending all this money, where he really felt, that wasn't right. And our charity was anything but that. We were just kind of grassroots trying to do what we were doing. So we kind of struck up a friendship that way. He's been excellent, very supportive of the charity. He's been very supportive of our business. I think we've worked well together and on a bunch of different things. We had a couple really big fitness expos that benefited the charity, and we were part of that. My charity is really involved with the police department, and Chief Luther Reynolds, he was a good friend of mine here in Charleston. So John's a big supporter of the police and trying to do what we can to improve community relations and interaction with the police. And so we've had a lot of the similar kind of common goals, I think, and that's how we've kind of continued to do things together. And like I saw you at that fitness event that he kind of helps plan, and so he's just been great.
Awesome. And I was going to ask this question later in our interview, but tell us, for the listeners, what your charity is about, Petals for Peanuts, because it's awesome.
Thank you. Having 7 kids, it really goes back to around that time, 2013 or so. I was with my oldest daughter at the time, who then was probably 8, maybe something, 8 or 9. And I had a younger daughter. I have a younger daughter who we called her the Peanut, because she was really tiny at the time. Now she's really tall. But
Yeah.
We were looking at bikes around, it was 2 days before Christmas, and just kind of talking about getting the kids something. And even in my household where the kids were very fortunate, a lot of stuff was handed down. A lot of times they didn't get a new thing.
Hmm.
And sort of struck me as a bike was kind of a great thing for kids to get. And especially as a child, to get their first bike or their first own new bike. So, we only give away new bikes. And a couple of girls that had babysat for us worked in some of the schools in the city in North Charleston area. And so we just started buying bikes, and the teachers would ask, tell me about your bike. And they would figure out who actually didn't have one. And we just started doing small bike giveaways, 6, 10, 12 bikes, something like that. And mainly, in that kind of 6 or 7 to 10-year-old range initially. We did that for a couple of years, and then we did the big bike expo with John. We gave away 260 bikes in one event.
Wow.
And we started working with the police department because in the city, initially North Charleston and then Charleston, because they helped us find the kids. That was one of the biggest challenges was, figuring out who to get the bikes out to. And, there was a lot of things going on in that time period around 2016 or 17 with police, and there's some shooting that had happened. And so I really kind of started thinking there's got to be a way we can kind of help those relations. And so we started doing these events, having fully uniformed officers come, and they would give the kids the bikes.
Mm-hmm.
And so first interaction with a police officer was much more positive. And the police department does a great job of going out into the community. So we started giving them bikes to carry in the back of their car or their trunk. And they just go out and find kids that were doing good things and give them a bike. And
Wow.
now we're up to, I think we gave away a couple at the event I saw you at, and then an event earlier. We're about 2,600 bikes that we've given away the last couple of years.
That's amazing. How many events do you do a year? Because you just did 2, correct?
Other ones, COVID kind of, hurt us there for a while. The year before COVID, we actually were doing a Christmas giveaway with Boeing. We did, I think, 300 bikes with them in December, and those went to one of the kids' foundations, the Toys for Tots and all that stuff. So we became associated with Boeing for a couple of years. And at that point in time, we were probably doing 6 or 8 events. I didn't want it to be just a Christmas thing. I kind of wanted it to be year round, and, especially in the summer when kids are getting out of school.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of bike, and it gives them a freedom, and, sort of get them on a bike, hopefully before they get an iPad or a phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Be outside.
So now, we're getting back. I hope, who knows, with everything going on, that we can get back to some big public events. I'd like to do a really big giveaway in the fall or spring, like 500 bike type giveaway. So we're kind of working on that, and we've gotten more structured and involved with the city of Charleston and the police department there. There's a couple organizations that they have within the department now, or part of the department, that are really doing great things for the community. So we want to be fully supportive of that.
Awesome. That's so cool. It has to feel good too, knowing that there are 2,500 kids that have bikes because of something that you started. And riding bikes is all a part of like your childhood and creating memories and nostalgia. And, you remember your first bike and riding to your friend's house. Like, it's memories.
Well, and that's what a lot of folks could, or everyone, and really one way or another, could relate to. We got it down to about $55 or $60. We were getting really good Huffy bikes. We were getting them in bulk. And, the one thing is, a lot of folks can afford that to give a child a bike. So it wasn't, a huge ask. And, I'm glad there are people out there, trying to solve cancer and diabetes and all that. But those are such big things, and take so much money and stuff. Whereas this is just kind of at the grassroots, a thing that helps. You can see it, you see the result, you see the effect. And like you said, you had all kinds of my friends and people who are in big business and stuff. Every one of them, no matter how successful or old they are now, can relate to what it's like to get a bike. And it really is an amazing effect it has on a child, especially a child who's never really had anything of their own, and just light up. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And then you had the element of like not expecting it, it's like, oh my gosh, like where you're talking about like the police officers, gifting them while they're driving around and stuff. It's like, and creating that good relationship right off the bat. I think that's phenomenal too. Of, they're, like you said, the first interaction having with a police officer, it's not negative, it's a positive one. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, and the parents, the parents appreciate it. The family members of the child appreciate it. I mean, I think it goes that bike, I think, ends up being a symbol of a lot of things. Hopefully, all good that are only the beginning of building a better relationship.
Yeah, totally. You guys, I wanted to interrupt this episode because tickets are officially on sale for the Become Your Vision Women's Conference on September 26th in Mount Pleasant in South Carolina at the Ion Meeting House, also known as the Ion Chapel. I will be speaking. I'll have a guest speaker. There are going to be giveaways, music, treats, workshops. The energy is high, and you will be surrounded by like-minded women who want to better themselves. So when you leave my event, you're going to feel empowered to challenge your thoughts and your critical inner voice. You're going to know that you're not alone in the struggles that you face. You're going to experience breakthroughs through the workshops that I create. And you're going to feel so connected to yourself and the other women in that room, because we are all so much alike in terms of the hardships we have faced and the struggles that we deal with every single day. It's our critical inner voice, and it could be so mean sometimes. So like I said, I will be speaking. I'm going to share my story with you. We all have a story, so I'm going to share mine with you. I have a guest speaker. Her name is LB Adams. She's a TEDx speaker. She was the TEDx MC. She's also an author. You are just going to get so much goodness from her talk. And then I'm going to have a special guest, and I'm going to keep her a surprise. But she is a remarkable person, super inspiring. It's just going to be so good to listen to her. Tickets will go fast because people are needing connection again and wanting to experience life and to literally become the person that is their vision. That's the reason I created this podcast and these events. So I'm asking you, why not you, and why not now? So before you talk yourself out of an opportunity that is literally knocking on your door, hear that? Yeah, that's me knocking. I want you to know that even if we've never met, we're friends. There's a reason you're listening to this episode. You need to be there. You do. So come by yourself, or bring a friend, or send someone you think that may need this. And just want to remind you that there's no need to be scared or nervous, because you have friends in that room. You just haven't met them yet. And I want to meet you. I really do. So go to the link in my show notes to purchase your tickets. The event is September 26th. You got to jump on this. You guys, can't wait to see you there. Okay, so let's get into the more, I guess, surgical questions now. I want to start off by asking you fillers and Botox. That was not a good segue from bikes to fillers and Botox, but hey, that's probably why you're able to do what you do now. What is the difference?
Extremely different. Botox is a paralytic that is injected under the skin to stop muscles from contracting. And so what you start to see, it can be in your 20s or certainly your 30s and 40s, is that when someone looks at themselves with their face at rest, they may not have a lot of wrinkles. Mm-hmm. But when they their eyebrows or they smile, they get crow's feet around their eyes, or they get these wrinkles across their forehead. And those are things that Botox fixes. Mm-hmm. It basically paralyzes those little muscles for about 90 days and stops those wrinkles from occurring when you activate the muscles that are in that area. Filler is more for either deep wrinkles or lines that you have at rest. So first place people start to see them is along their cheek and mouth, nasolabial, or what's called marionette lines. And it's also for loss of volume. So as we age, our face starts out when we're a child as an inverted triangle. If you can imagine, the cheekbones are kind of the base of the triangle and your chin's the point. you have a wider face in the mid face and it goes down more narrow. As we age, that flips over and people start getting jowling and their face gets wider at the base. And we lose bone structure as we age and fat in our face, so the skin becomes more loose. So fillers are basically a plumping or structural component that's injected under the skin. Most of them are hyaluronic acid, which is a natural occurring substance in the body, but synthetically it's made by the different filler companies. And so filler can be put in the cheeks, it can be put in the lips, it can be put in the different deeper lines, like I mentioned earlier, around the mouth in that area. So it's more of just volumizing or filling the face to give you a more round, full face appearance, which is more consistent with a child or youthful face.
So generally, fillers are typically for the older generation.
Well, they become a lot more prominent with younger, especially. I mean, their kids kids literally wanting their lips injected because of Kylie Jenner and these women and that kind of stuff. But the younger generation, filler wise, probably the lips is the number one thing that we're seeing a lot of, where 5 years ago we rarely saw it. And then Botox is starting in the 20s for sure. We're seeing folks. There's a lot of folks that believe starting earlier is preventative. It probably does help a little bit in terms of the amount of wrinkling that you get in your skin. But a lot of that is due to just aging of the skin with loss of elastin and collagen and things that change. So, and a lot of folks get both. Botox, the other way to think is Botox is good for basically the eye area and above, and filler is usually sort of the cheek and below.
So would you recommend Botox if somebody's thinking about Botox? What age do you typically recommend people start? Or does it depend?
There's really an age. I think it's based on the person and how they're aging and when they see things. Like I mentioned, the wrinkles, especially in the forehead, is probably the first place most people begin to see it. And those horizontal lines or the vertical, like 1 or 11 line when you frown between your eyebrows, that's they start to see. And, folks will come in and say, what can I do about this? Botox is an easy, very safe, reasonably priced for the most part treatment that can be very effective. So it's a good, and people will start in their 20s. 20s is probably the early. I tend not to do anything to anyone under 18 because they can't really consent for themselves yet. So I think cosmetic stuff, that's a whole different discussion and ballpark. But probably in the early to mid 20s is probably the earliest that I've given folks Botox.
Yeah. I was going to ask you too, like, has anybody come in where they're like, I want Botox and fillers and whatever else. Are you ever, when you know that it's probably not necessary right now, does it put you in kind of a weird situation, or do you just tell them straight up, like, I don't think it's time?
Right. Well, or it's not going to make a difference. Right. Tell them, I think you should save your money because it's not going to, I think our biggest thing, we get asked a lot by folks, what do I need? And joke, I say, you don't need anything, but
right.
I can tell you, they'll say, well, you're the expert, tell me what I should get. And it doesn't really work that way because I can tell you a whole list of things that we could do, but it really only matters what's bothering you, and so folks will come in and if you were to guess, you would think they're coming in for like, one thing, and then it ends up being another thing that they see and that bothers them. And my job is really to listen to them and to make sure, number one, it's safe. And number two, hopefully that we can match, that their expectations are reasonable and that we have a procedure or treatment that will match their expectations, and meet their expectations. And so they'll be happy. But the worst thing for us, again, customer service, is people that are unhappy. And a lot of times the unhappiness stems from just either misunderstanding or not realistic in understanding what's being done. And so oftentimes, it's, I can't say often, but probably once a week, somebody, we see hundreds of people, they'll tell somebody, you don't need this, or you shouldn't do this, or this is not a good idea for you, or I should do this, maybe somebody else can do that for you.
Right. And at least, you're honest, because you would hate for them to come back and be like, well, didn't really want it,
Yeah. And that's one thing in surgery, especially the surgical aspect, that in general surgery, they would always say, it's not who to operate on that's hard to learn. It's who not to operate on.
Right.
That you sort of, you own that the whole situation, and you can't go back from it.
Right.
And people aren't realistic. They have surgery now. They're still not happy, and they have a scar. So now they're really not happy. So.
Right. Yeah. Is it true that if you work out a lot, the Botox doesn't last in your system as long, or is that an urban myth,
I don't
legend?
any scientific data for that. There's a whole bunch of things out there on the internet that somebody writes that becomes urban legend, and and it ranges from surgeries to treatments to the injection is a very small amount. I mean, it's tenths of a cc of fluid. It's put under the skin, so it's not disseminated. So I don't believe, my own personal opinion is I don't believe that makes a difference. But
Okay. So the people that are super athletic and exercise, 6 days a week, you don't see them more often than people that are a little bit more sedentary.
People, we see people come in and say it didn't work. And there are people who metabolize it differently, which is metabolism factor. And there is Xeomin, Dysport, Allergan makes Botox, which obviously is the one everyone knows. There's different products. And so people do sometimes do better with one of the products versus the other ones. But a lot of times it's either dosing or, the amount that they're given. They may need more. Folks who are real athletic tend to be obviously more thin, and they tend to have more wrinkling because they have less volume and fat. So a few things that go to that. But I always joke with people when they say that, I'm like, so when is too much? Where's the line of too much, exercising? Like,
Right.
at what your Botox and not burning it? Like, and that's just, it's kind of a rhetorical question because there's no answer to it. So.
Right. Yeah. Let's get into breast augmentation. Would you say this is an operation that you perform most of, or what is your surgery that you are doing day in and day out?
Yeah, I do a lot of breast augmentations, probably almost 300 or so now a year. Probably with augmentation and lift and things like that, implant exchange is probably well over 300. But we're seeing a trend where people aren't getting as big of breasts as they used to get. People are becoming more, kind of goes in circles. Seeing a lot of women in their 40s now that have had kids and have, way too big a breasts for their lifestyle and for their neck and back. And so we're either taking them out or exchanging them. I do a lot of abdominoplasties, probably do 4 to 6 of those a week, tummy tucks. And then we pull fat grafting to the buttocks, or Brazilian butt lift is now the craze, with everything stemming from, I think, Kardashians and all those different famous
So that's
people.
a common thing now.
2 of them today. I've probably done 4 this week already, and it's Wednesday. So
Okay, and what is the name for it?
well, it's fat grafting to the butt. The sort of has become BBL, Brazilian butt lift.
Okay. So what does that entail? Where do you take the fat from?
Really, we can take it from anywhere. Most folks, it's from their abdomen and flanks, sort of bra line area. You can take it from their arms. There's not anywhere we can get the fat comes out. We basically purify or strain it down a bit and then re-inject it. And people fill their bums.
Oh my God. Okay. So I'm so intrigued by this. Does that last the rest of their life, or do they have to keep getting fat injections there?
Well, about 60% or so of what we transfer and inject survives. So there is a loss of some fat and volume. So some folks will need 2 sessions or more, depending on how big they're trying to get. But the fat that survives, and once you're kind of out of that period of time, it lives with you the rest of your life. It's your own tissue. So.
Wow. So do you think Kylie Jenner had fat injections? Is that her real butt?
I don't know. Kylie, I don't know too much. I think hers has been more facial stuff. I think Kim Kardashian probably had something injected at some point.
You think?
Some of those different girls in that family, they all seem like they might have had a little bit of something done. You see some of these before and after pictures of them when they were young, and they look dramatically different.
Well, Kylie Jenner for sure, her face definitely, but she had more of the Jenner athletic, thin
Yeah,
and lean and tall um, body, and now she has like this big juicy booty like Kim Kardashian. So you always wonder, like, you
yeah,
know, how did you get a big booty like that?
yeah. And she doesn't obviously have much fat anywhere on her body, so I assume there are some products that can be injected, like a material called Sculptra, which is kind of what's used in folks who don't have enough fat for their. So I would imagine if she's had something, it's probably been something like that done multiple times. Of course, obviously resources are not an issue for them, so they
Right.
can do something, and it's
Get
expensive.
other
But
people's fat.
no, you can't. Everybody always offers to donate, but no, you can't. You can't really do
Okay.
that.
Just take my fat and it's in a Kardashian or Jenner's body. Like, totally cool with it. Okay, so going back to the breast augmentation, let's first talk about what is more popular now, what the difference between silicone and saline.
Yeah, so that's you may or may not be aware, but that's a very touchy subject in some circles right now. There's a lot of online groups and folks who feel very strongly that silicone is a dangerous substance to their body.
Mm,
Um, there have been no, scientific studies that confirm that, but still, the most common one that we put in by far is silicone.
yeah.
Uh, they feel very natural. They're softer. The composite material they're made out of today is very cohesive, so it's not a liquid. You can cut the implant, basically nothing comes out of it. It's stuck together, which is much better than the older implants, which were really just a mess. They were a liquid that was just terrible and got all, when it got all over stuff. So I think problems a lot of folks have from implants was more related probably to the earlier implants when they caused a lot of inflammation and a lot of reactions, and folks would get really bad capsular contractures or like really hard breast
Mm,
pockets and stuff. So, but silicone is by far the most common. Saline is occasionally used. It tends to ripple a little bit more on the sides of the implant. So a lot of the women that we see who are thin or have had children and have lost a lot of breast volume, they need the silicone so that they don't have rippling because they don't have enough breast tissue to cover the implant. So,
okay.
yep,
Do you typically go over or under the muscle?
vast majority are under the muscle. It gives more upper pole fullness, and I have a pretty large group of girls and women who are competitive, either weightlifting or bodybuilding and stuff. And in that subset, it's a much more difficult situation. So they tend to be the population who we do it on top of the muscle for, because of the animation that occurs when they flex their muscles. So
Mm,
um, fitness, really high intensity fitness folks, it's a little bit more of a decision making process as to be submuscular or subglandular.
okay. And now there are multiple ways you can insert the implant. So you have an armpit, belly button, or under the breast, like right directly under the nipple. Which one, or I guess the nipple as well. Which one do you do, or do you recommend?
Almost all of the ones I do today are under the kind of the inframammary fold or under the fold of the breast in that area. It heals very well. It's the easiest one to put the implant in, positioning wise.
Okay. And the scar, it's like nobody sees it.
Oh, and it's usually 3 centimeters and heals really well.
Yeah. Do people typically complain that they have gone too big or too small?
Almost everyone is worried that they're going to be too big, and
Uh-huh.
virtually no one ever is, and they're usually wishing they'd gone a little bigger. And that's a function of when they're put in initially. I tell folks, you're going to hate me, you're going to hate yourself, you're going to hate your family. They seem so big, so swollen, so high, and you wonder what you've done to yourself, and you're upset.
Hmm.
In 3 months, that swelling goes down, and they take a more natural shape, and they drop. And then a lot of the women think, in retrospect, hey, I kind of liked when they were bigger, and
Hmm.
a little bigger.
Yeah. Um, yeah, you hear different women. The friends that I've had, they had their operation years ago, but they'll be like, "Oh, I went too big." That seems the case in the people that I have talked to, but I guess it all depends. Now, with the breast implants, is it true you don't have to replace them like you did before?
Right. Well, the one thing I'd finish up on the sizing is that I think years ago, a lot of folks left it up to the doctors. And I think at that time, there was a trend for bigger breasts. And I think I do see women who've had them placed, 10, 15 years ago who say they were too big.
Mm.
We have using mechanisms now where we have actually models of what the implant will be like in your body. And we can put that in a bra. And it's extremely accurate. So I think that's helped cut down a lot on the difficulty in choosing a size. So I think we're doing a little better job in being more accurate at sizing people.
Mm.
And I,
Weren't people replacing the implant before because of health issues, like in terms of like they would, I don't know, possibly lead to more rupturing or I guess the quality of the implant that had to be replaced?
right. So there's a couple things like the FDA requires us to tell folks that an implant's not a lifetime device. So that your patient that you're not going to need another implant. The studies that Mentor and some of the big distributors did had a life expectancy for implants of about 13 and a half years in the older generation of implants.
Mm.
Warranty for most implants by the implant maker is about 10 years in most circumstances. So there was a lot of things on the internet, like you had to have them replaced every 10 years, which wasn't true. It was just the warranty expired. So I tell folks, like your refrigerator, you don't throw out your refrigerator because the warranty is expired if you're
Yeah.
not using it. Well, it's the same thing with the implants. If you're not having change in shape or discomfort or problems, then you keep going. And the implants are made much better today. They're much more durable, and I think they're going to last extremely long in terms of the outcome for length. But you just never know, what's going to happen. And the averages are, that they last a long time. But I can't tell folks that you're not going to need another surgery, which replacing them is quite easy. Actually, it's 20-minute surgery. So.
Okay. So if a woman has had surgery and she has no issues, is there a possibility that she can keep them in in her without having another surgery for her life?
Yes. And I've taken them out of folks who've had them from the 70s and 80s. Yeah, they still had them.
Wow. So interesting. What you were talking about before these Facebook groups, was that along the lines of people complaining about having their implants contribute to chronic illnesses? And do you have an
Yes.
opinion on that? Okay.
Well, I really don't. I try to stay out of that.
Yeah.
Who feel that having the implants removed has made them feel much better.
Mm.
And I've had the flip side where we've taken them out of folks who didn't feel any better, and then were upset that they didn't have their implants anymore and looked, aesthetically, worse. I see a lot of women who kind of exasperated everything else and tried to figure out why they have issues and have had the implant, and then come to us to have the implants removed. And there's around here and in different areas that's all they basically do is take implants out of people. And, I try to practice, medicine based on science and what studies show. And I tell women, I'm happy to take them out for you, and I hope this helps you. But I just promise you that and tell you that this is, going to fix your underlying health conditions. And like I said, I think the older implants and people who have these rock hard capsules and stuff, I think there is definitely, some huge health benefits to replacing or removing those for sure.
Mm.
But there's a lot of groups that feel strongly, and there are groups that would attack me for saying what I just said because they take that as not believing them. But, I think we have to practice medicine based on more than just a belief.
Research based, right?
And they'll say, well, the implant companies aren't, they're covering it up or something. But with people in America today trying to sue everybody for everything, if there
Right.
was any medical data that they could really stake the claim to, there would be lawsuits, left and right against these huge companies.
For sure. Now, is there a difference in the structure of the boob, or I guess the appearance of the breast when you've had implants and you remove them, or what do they look like afterwards?
Yeah. So, they've a lot of times having the implants, especially for several years, can cause some atrophy of what breast tissue the patient may have had. And obviously, they had the implants placed for a reason, so they most likely didn't like their breast to start with. Now, I will say, especially women, who had implants in their 20s and now they're in their 40s or 50s, a lot of those women, because of hormones and weight gain and stuff, have actually developed more breasts than they had when they got the. So those women tend to be okay. A lot of them do need a lift when the implant's taken out because that implant is basically just deflated. So, but it's not something I think that most women are really thrilled about the way it looks. It takes what I've found is it takes at least 3 to 6 months for women to kind of wrap their brain around sort of now this new appearance, and time goes on. I think they become less upset about it, but
Okay.
the shock. I mean, it's hard, and that's why I take it very seriously when women want to take them out, and it has nothing to do with me believing or not believing in what they're saying. I believe them, but I don't want to take one problem and create another one and
Right.
proving it. And I think, when groups in that are so gung ho and attacking people because you don't believe what they believe, it puts the patients in a very difficult position too.
Yeah. Okay. So this is going to sound like a silly question. Why can't you deposit fat into the breast like you would do the butt?
You can.
You can.
We do it a lot in breast cancer reconstruction surgery. As I said, though, with the fat grafting of the butt, about 60% of it survives. And so we don't really know what that 60% is going to be. And math can be very difficult that way. There's also some concern that fat grafting causes calcification or scarring on mammograms. And so it becomes difficult to survey people down the road for risk of breast cancer. And it's, there are people who do it, and we do it to offset, like I said, asymmetry, but it's really hard to take a woman with an A or B breast and build them to a C or D that's aesthetically pleasing with fat grafting. And it would take a lot.
Okay. I didn't even know that was a thing that was offered, since you don't talk about, you don't hear about it, I should say.
Right. Mainly breast cancer, especially women who've had radiation. By putting that fat in there, it can help revascularize and improve the scarring and fibrosis with radiation. So there's some other medical benefits to it that we believe help. But it's certainly not a first line sort of approach to improving breast.
Okay. Now, for women who have had kids, maybe they have like a little pooch, or I know a lot of women are really self-conscious about the stretch marks, and they're not happy with their body and these marks. What type of surgery would you recommend for them if they wanted to improve what their stomach looks like?
Well, there's a range of it. It really depends on the severity of the skin. New technologies with liposuction and body contouring. Now, a lot of the devices we have lasers and devices that heat the underside of the skin. And that is an effort to thicken the skin and get the skin to tighten and improve. So we're seeing much better results with skin tightening than we did, with traditional, just straightforward liposuction or with previous technology. And a lot of the focus of technology is in that area because it is such a big problem. Stretch is extremely hard to fix with any other approach short of cutting it out, and removing them. So if somebody has loose skin and stretch marks, especially their lower abdomen, the non-invasive or minimally invasive techniques are not highly effective. And those are folks that you really look at needing some form of a tummy tuck or abdominoplasty. that case, especially if they've had children, we also tighten the muscle, the diastasis or stretching of the rectus, the six pack muscle that gets kind of separated with pregnancies and weight change. We suture those back together down the midline, and that tightens and flattens the inside of the abdomen, as well as then removing the loose skin.
Mm. Okay. So a woman that is like her body is scarred, she's had children, she can get that fixed with a tummy tuck, even if her um, scars are, large.
Yes, and that's so when women come in trying to decide which approach they want, it gets back to what we said earlier. I ask them like, what's going to make you happy 6 months from now, or what's your goal, or what's your, objective here. And if they say, I want the flattest, belly I can have, tummy tuck's the only way to do that, or abdominoplasty. If they say, I want to fit better in my clothing, I'm not too concerned about the skin, especially a lot of like married women that are a little bit older will say, I'm not interested in wearing a bikini. I'm just interested in feeling better, fitting better in my clothing. Those folks, things like Smart Lipo, Body Tight, these contouring liposuction machines, procedures with a machine to heat the skin do very well. And the downtime is very, very minimal for those procedures, whereas a tummy tuck's, a much bigger undertaking. I mean, it's a few weeks of healing.
Yeah. I have a lot of girlfriends who've had babies, and that is an issue. It's just their stomach is, very scarred with stretch marks, and it's bothersome. So that question was for them, those women. And again, it's a personal thing. If you're proud of your stretch marks, it doesn't bother you, that's fine. There's other women that want to wear a bikini and not have their stretch marks showing. I have a few more questions here. Let's get into Loopit, your app that you co-created. Is that correct? Or
yeah, I actually started it, and now we have a whole team. We have a CEO and board members and a whole development team. I started it about 5 years ago, and originally it really stemmed from online, reviews that were either false or not by real patients, and really just vindictive attacks on folks, and didn't really offer any educational value to either the business or to future customers or patients. And we've evolved now into what's basically a social network for health and wellness industry, and basically doing that through better information. So I basically built a Facebook-like app that is only for health and wellness, trainers, dentists, veterinarians, therapists, really everything in the health and wellness space, so that, and they're locally based. So Charleston, it has its own app coming out. So in this area, you can go on there and look at a feed of all different kind of health and wellness folks. And there's videos on there, all kinds of articles. There's a calendar basically that we outline what's going on in the community in health and wellness. And then we devised a whole new kind of way to do reviews that are standardized, so you can compare these scores between different businesses. Google reviews are star ratings, but what a star means to one person versus another, and then just writing a comment is not really, you can't compare that data. There's no validity to that type of stuff. So we actually have some artificial intelligence working with us and using that. We have an ambassador program. So in our platform, if you were thinking of coming to a business to have a treatment, you can actually, click on someone who's offered to be an ambassador, who's had the procedure, and you can interact with them and get information. And it's really evolved into a bigger thing than I sort of thought it would. But
yeah,
we're signing up businesses now locally. We have about 20 businesses on, and we're releasing the actual app here in Charleston in the next 7 or 8 weeks. It'll be live and running. So.
oh my gosh. Yeah, because you do go on to Google and you'll see there's been several things where I've looked people up just to see their reviews. And people leave these nasty reviews, 1-star review that can ruin a business. And then you'll see the surgeon or whoever it is that they're commenting on. They're like, I looked in our database and you were never a customer. So there are people who knows if a staff member from the business, they left, a disgruntled employee, and then left a message or left a comment, or if there's competitors leaving comments on other competitors to lower their score. Is that what kind of was the inspiration behind you creating this service?
Well, it was, but I also, if you see a business that has 500 5-star reviews, it's not real. I mean, there's no way that can be the case. And so I think it's more important to have authentic reviews in for two reasons. One, for the business. So I want to know what's going on in my business. So performance improvement of the business. If you ask standardized questions and have a standardized way of doing it, you can get feedback about the front desk or about the office or the parking or whatever that you want to know. And that can help you adjust your business. It also is very helpful from a human resource standpoint. This is an objective review of an employee by person. So you can't say that there's a bias or that, the manager doesn't like me, so I didn't get my raise or whatever. These help from a human resource standpoint. And then obviously from a customer standpoint, the coming into a surgery or to a practice or health and wellness industry, expecting that, nothing's ever going to go wrong is just not reasonable. There's a complication rate with everything. There's no zeros and no 100%. And so I started to think it'd be more important to show, how the business handles that, so the business can kind of put an article on there or show a video about, well, somebody's unhappy about their scarring. Well, this is how we would have fixed it, or here's how we've adjusted. 6 patients have this problem. It needs to be more educational than like what you said. It's just an attack, and patients will call and say, I'm going to write a bad review if you don't give me this or do that. And
right.
A business contact us for Lupit that had interviewed somebody on a Friday for a spa position at one of the spas here in Charleston, and they didn't hire the person. And the person went online the next day and left a bad Google review. And then her husband went on Sunday the next day and left another bad review. So this poor 2 bad Google reviews because they didn't hire somebody. And it's craziness that's going on. And, I think that patients are becoming, or at least the desire to become more educated and come in and say, I did my research. Well, the problem is there's nowhere. We want patients to be educated, but there's not a place for them to go. And so this platform is hopefully going to address that problem, where they can go and see real reviews, real information. It's standardized. They can see videos. They can see links to articles that we have on there about topics. And so, I tell these business owners that are joining us, an educated patient, educated in the right way with real data is a great patient, and it's better for the business. Going online and, anybody with a keyboard can write something. So,
right.
With having had it done once, which is not, again, indicative of outcomes.
So for that business you were talking about, that person that left, her and her husband left bad reviews, this company can go to you on Lupit, correct? And then basically provide videos of, or educating them on, or how would they combat those poor Google reviews?
Well, you really can't with the Google reviews. As we do is we've had about a 42% return rate on soliciting these businesses. And so what the hope is to begin, only a patient who's been to the business or practice gets invited to do the review. There's certain questions are asked that are standardized among all the different people in that field. So that then if you go on there and see 4 or 5 scores for, say, a chiropractor, that those scores are standardized and they're comparable. And so you can't do anything about the Google reviews and Facebook reviews because, those entities haven't done anything to prevent, fake reviews. Right. There's been Amazon, which obviously is one of the biggest or the biggest company in the world, like up to 70 or 75% of the reviews on there are probably false or misleading in one way or another.
I had a friend who kind of works in the analytics for a different website. And he said too, like, of course they're going to put the 5 stars up, for in the what's the word I'm looking for? Front and center, so you see those and you're like, he's like, you can't really rely on those high scores or affiliates or things like that, or companies paying for reviews. So that's so interesting. I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the 5-star system, I think, is has its place. For Yelp and going to have a dessert, okay, or going to dinner, it makes sense. But if you're having surgery or a loved one's surgery, or it comes time, God forbid, somebody's parent needs to go into a nursing home. Like, how do you pick those places? And there's no real standardized way to do that. So we built this platform that hopefully is going to address that problem over the next several months and a couple of years. We're starting here in Charleston, obviously, just because of the market, and then we're looking at expanding into Raleigh and soon, and then kind of that Research Triangle area, and just get in a few markets and see what happens.
Yeah, such an interesting concept. I know you've had a long day of surgery, so I'm gonna just do a couple more here. I had two followers ask two different questions. So one of them was, how do you feel about implants affecting patients' health after surgery and explants? We kind of touched on that a bit, that it depends on the case. And for some people, it may help if they're having health issues, and some people not so much.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. It's a very hot topic right now, and people are extremely one-sided or another in how they feel. I think, as I said, I have seen patients that have felt dramatically better after. So, we do it. I can't, I probably do a couple of them a month. I don't do a large volume of them. There are a lot of people there are, surgeons that do primarily that. And the idea of explant is to take out the implant and the capsule, which is what we do, when we do it. We've seen people feel better. And so I think there's something there in certain patients.
Mm-hmm.
There are also the flip side. I've seen folks who have done that and been extremely upset and unhappy with how they look afterwards and not felt any better. So I think it's just an individualized patient thing. And, the best thing for a patient to do is go in and talk to a plastic surgeon and, talk to a couple of them and get people's different opinions on it.
Yeah. And maybe possibly find a group that's, had experienced it, with taking the implants out. Do they feel different, or did it not really change anything? And I'm sure there's tons of groups out there for that. Another one is, do you recommend over the muscle or under the muscle for breast reconstruction? Is that kind of the same with a basic breast augmentation, or is it different if they're having reconstruction done?
It's a little different. So when I started out doing this, now it's been, I guess, 15, 20 years of being involved in it. All of the reconstructions were done subpectoral or under the muscle. And of different composite materials, specifically a material called alloderm, which is an acellular dermal matrix. It's basically cadaveric back skin that's been cleaned and used as a covering for the implant. We started to do a lot more pre-pectoral or on top of the muscle breast reconstruction. So today, I think in most patients, if it's possible, putting the implant on top of the muscle or in the on top of the muscle, it just does better for them. And I think the advent again of having those materials that we have now have allowed us to do that. There's less morbidity when you don't have to cut the pectoralis muscle and lift it. And it also can be a little bit better with radiation. If you can expand the tissue before the radiation, then you can have a little bit more success with implants in that scenario. But we've definitely moved more towards the pre-pectoral space or on top of the muscle with breast reconstruction.
So just to clarify, if you don't have any issues, if you're going in for a typical breast augmentation, you would say below the muscle. If you're going in for reconstruction, over the muscle.
The over the muscle has become kind of a newer, more modern way of doing it.
Gotcha. Okay. Kind of more personal questions here to finish off, but you have a ton going on. You have a wife, you have 7 kids, you have multiple locations, and then now the app and the charity. do you have time for yourself? And when you do, what do you do to kind of like zone out?
Well, I work out a lot. I used to run marathons for a while. I got a little too old to do that. It was
Yeah. Takes a toll on your body.
tried to do one a month when I turned 40. I only made it a few months, but
Jeez.
I mean, I work out. I work out a good bit. I enjoy watching my children. Playing sports, being outside, doing that kind of stuff with them. It's hard. I think there's different periods where it's busier, and you just kind of need to focus a little more to get stuff done. And it's hard because I know, at the end of the day, my children don't necessarily know the kind of day you've had. And, when I see 70 or 80 patients in the clinic in a day, you've talked to a lot of people, you've listened to
Right.
a lot of things, and you may not, you may want to just sit quietly somewhere, but
Yeah.
it, as we all know, I mean, time goes by quickly, and you blink, and it's amazing how far down the line you get. And I do believe that a lot of those folks that down the line, when they are successful, regret. Nobody regrets working. Taking too much time off. They all regret working too much.
Working.
So,
Totally.
but it's not this. I think the up and coming generations are going to be. It's going to be different. They definitely choose. Their social life and their work life are very different. And
Mhm.
but when you're running businesses or you're starting, nobody's going to work at it as hard as you do, and you have to do that, especially in the beginning.
Yeah. Now, is it hard for your wife, having all the kids and their sports, and then you're working a lot?
Yeah, I think it's very. I mean, I think it's hard for her for sure, but I think she also in some ways is lucky in that she gets to spend time with the kids more so and do that stuff because they do count on her so much, and she does a great job with them, and I think they're extremely lucky to have that. And I think that's been very helpful, and she's been a driving force behind them being so successful.
Mm. How long have you guys been married?
It'll be 21 years in September.
That's a long time. Yeah.
And our old 19. So
Has
we've had
that
children
ever been an issue? You see women all day and then you see them half naked. Has that ever been an issue for her?
with it at times, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had to ask. I'm just personal like that. We'll have to have her on next time.
There you go. Yeah, I'm sure she'll have a lot of interesting things to say.
Where can listeners find you?
Well, I'm usually at one of the offices, so they're welcome to come in anytime. I love meeting people and talking with them. We have an Instagram page that I think we try to keep some interesting stuff on. That's one for me and then one for the business. So I get a lot of direct messaging from people. I try to keep up on that and try to respond to that stuff. So
On Instagram, I'll put in the show notes. Can you tell them what you are?
Dennis Schimpf, MD, I believe, actually. So
Okay. I'll double check just before I put in the show notes. And then they can also check out Pedals for Peanuts and Loop It on Instagram as well, correct?
all of that. And then, I rewrote the book that I had released a few years ago, and it's being published by Forbes in September. So that'll be out. They're doing a hardback version of it.
We didn't even touch on that. Tell us the name of your book again.
Finding Beauty.
Finding Beauty. I'm sorry. I'm like, I don't even know if it was in the bio there. Yes, it was. I don't know how I skipped over that. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, I just, kind of like I was saying before, I see a ton of people each week in the clinic, and you sort of see and hear the same questions. And so I decided to write a book about kind of those questions, and each chapter is a different scenario. But from the sort of viewpoint that this beauty idea that people chase is not something that's really physical, it's more emotional and something that you feel. And I saw a TED Talk years ago by a gentleman who was a kind of a design expert. And he talked about like how you design things in stores or products so that people see them and have a connection to it and how they feel. And that's why when you go shopping, there's 3 shelves of stuff and there's 6 different companies making the same thing. How and what makes you choose one over the other? And it really are thinking that the whole idea of this beauty and a lot of it comes from confidence and how you feel about yourself. And plastic surgery can help you kind of overcome some hurdles. People who are uncomfortable with their, like you said, your girlfriends with their stomachs or abdomens after children. A mom who won't go to the park or bathing, won't go to the pool with the bathing suit on. And that has a big ripple down effect. You don't go to the pool. You may not go and hang out with your kids as much. You don't feel you're in a bad mood when you're there. All these things because you don't feel good about yourself and how you look. And so plastic surgery can help improve the physical aspect, but only you can really control that mental and improving how you feel about yourself and how other people kind of feel about you. And so the book goes through a lot of that and just talks about that stuff and a lot of clinical scenarios of, people come in, almost every woman, especially a mom, will say, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, I shouldn't be here. Like, this is selfish, shouldn't be spending money on this. I should be doing something else. Like those kind of things that, we've had some good discussions with moms that like saying, what do I tell my teenage daughter, tell
Right.
them who they are and how they look, yet here I am doing this. And so, that gets into a whole nother kind of discussion about, doing it for the right reasons, doing it for you. And obviously, we see folks come in and, they'll be doing it because they got divorced and they want to get back at their ex, or they want to look a certain way to attract a certain type of person. And those scenarios never work out.
Yeah. Yeah. So crazy. So true. There's that mental capacity, or not capacity, mental state of people coming in. And then I'm sure there's another part of it. Like you'll see these shows like Botched or whatever. They have one surgery and then it's like a domino effect and they're like all plastic.
Yeah, we try to get away we definitely don't want that either. But I will say, something as simple as like a breast augmentation, it's amazing. The girls come in and almost timid and have a sweatshirt on, and 3 months later they come back and they're all tan and they have a V-neck shirt on and they just really down the hallway. They just feel different about themselves. And it's great when you see folks, and a lot of the women who've had children, especially, their goals are very realistic. They're not trying to be a Vogue, Cosmo model. They're trying to get back to how they were before kids. And so those ladies are usually very happy, appreciative, they're realistic,
Right.
and being able to wear clothing again like they could, before children is a huge thing for them. So, those are the things that make doing our job, worthwhile and enjoyable.
For sure. I can imagine that. So your book comes out when?
We just finished the final edit. It's all laid out. So I'm thinking originally it was August. I can't say I was behind doing what I was supposed to do, but hopefully September-ish it'll be out, and it's going to be on Forbes national website and all that stuff. So
That is so cool. You should be really proud.
well, it was fun, and I enjoyed doing it, and it's a lot harder than I thought. It was definitely an eye-opening experience for
I've
me.
heard writing a book is a whole different beast.
It
And
is.
then you like write stuff and you're like, that sounds like crap. And then you rewrite it or whatever,
Yeah, then the publisher gets to a point where they're like, we're done, and you of course you're never done. You want to change it. You want to make it better. You want to.
So you worked
So
with a publisher, you weren't self-published.
no, it was with Advantage Media here in Charleston, and then they're partnered with Forbes. And so the first book was through Advantage Media, and that's actually a normal softback book that I give almost all the new patients to read and look at after their consult. And then after further discussions, and it was kind of well received, and they just, we talked about making a hardback version, which is all that Forbes does, and then it goes on their Forbes book site. And I saw somewhere they have like 70 million visitors a month or something. It's insane. Crazy.
Wow, that is crazy. So cool. So awesome. Well, I appreciate you. I'll leave all of your information in the show notes so listeners can find you. And I just appreciate your time.
Good. It was good talking with you, and you're doing a great job with this. I've heard nothing but good things, so I'm really thankful and appreciative to be on it.
Thank you so much. You guys, make sure if you like this episode to take a screenshot of wherever you're listening, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever. Take a screenshot and tag Dr. Dennis Schimpf himself or me. I would love it. What was your biggest takeaway from this episode? Love you guys. And remember, you got this. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you love this episode, make sure you are subscribed so you know when more episodes come available. My goal is to inspire others to become their vision, and one way to get the word out is with reviews. I would really appreciate it if you left an honest review on iTunes, and it would mean so much to me. Thanks again, and remember to go after the life you want. Bye, guys.